Imagine standing on a beach where the sand is warm beneath your feet and gentle waves lap at the shore. The air smells like salt and flowers. Birds call from the forest behind you. Everything seems peaceful and normal. But then you notice something strange. The trees in the forest are shorter than you expected, much shorter. And when you squint into the shadows between them, you see movement. Something large is walking through the ferns. Your heart begins to race, because what emerges is a dinosaur, not a massive building-sized creature from your imagination. This one is small, about as tall as a horse. Its long neck stretches up to nibble leaves from low branches. Its eyes are gentle and calm. It seems almost ordinary. You take a breath and smile. A dinosaur. A real living dinosaur. Right there in front of you. But then the shadow comes. It sweeps across the beach like a cloud passing over the sun. You look up and your blood turns cold. Something is flying above you. Something enormous. Its wings stretch wider than a school bus. Its head is the size of a dining room table. Its long neck curves like a serpent made of muscle and bone. And as it passes overhead, you realize with absolute terror that this flying creature is hunting the dinosaur beside you. In one smooth motion, the monster drops from the sky. Its massive jaws open. The little dinosaur doesn't even have time to run. There's a sickening crunch, a spray of dust, and then the giant flaps its wings and lifts back into the air, carrying its prize away. You stand frozen on that beach, trembling, trying to understand what you just witnessed. Because everything you thought you knew about the world of dinosaurs was wrong. In this place, the dinosaurs aren't the kings, they're the prey. In this place, the hunters rule from the sky, not the land. In this place, evolution wrote its rules backwards, and nature created something that shouldn't exist. This place was real. It was called Hatzeg Island, and its story is one of the strangest, most fascinating tales that Earth has ever told. Tonight, as you drift into sleep, let me take you there. Let me show you a world where giants became tiny, where the small became huge, and where life itself had to completely change just to survive. This is a story about an island lost in time, a story about creatures that evolution twisted into impossible shapes. A story about a place so bizarre that scientists still argue about whether it could have truly existed, but it did exist, and we're about to visit it together. So settle in, get comfortable, and let your imagination open wide, because we're about to travel back 70 million years to an ancient ocean called Tethys, to find an island where nothing made sense and everything was upside down. Welcome to Hatzeg Island. Welcome to the world that evolution forgot. And remember, this isn't fantasy, this isn't myth. Every creature I'm about to describe was real. Every detail is built from fossils and evidence. Every moment of this story actually happened. So take my hand, close your eyes, and let's step through time together. The beach beneath your feet is waiting, the forest is calling, and somewhere in the sky above, something huge is circling, watching, waiting for its next meal. Are you ready? Then let's begin. Chapter 1. When the Earth Split Apart. To understand Hatzeg Island, we first need to understand how different Earth looked 70 million years ago. If you could travel back to the late Cretaceous period and hover in space above our planet, you wouldn't recognize it. The continents weren't where they are today. The oceans weren't the same shape. Even the colors would look strange to your modern eyes. This was a time when Earth was in the middle of a massive transformation. For millions of years, all the land on our planet had been stuck together in one enormous supercontinent called Pangaea. Imagine every country, every mountain range, every desert, all connected in one giant piece. That was Earth for a very long time. But Pangaea didn't last. The forces deep inside our planet, the churning, melting rock far below the surface, began to pull Pangaea apart. Slowly, over millions of years, cracks formed. Those cracks became valleys. Those valleys filled with water and became seas. And those seas grew wider and wider until the continents drifted far apart. By 70 million years ago, Pangaea was long gone. In its place was a world of scattered lands and enormous oceans. But here's what made this time truly special. The sea levels were incredibly high, more than 200 meters higher than they are today. That's taller than a 60-story building. Why? Because Earth was so warm. The polar ice caps that we have now didn't exist back then. All that ice was melted into the oceans, raising the water to incredible heights. What does this mean? It means that huge areas of land that are dry today were underwater back then, and nowhere was this more dramatic than in Europe. If you looked at Europe 70 million years ago, you wouldn't see France or Germany or Romania. You would see hundreds of small islands scattered across a vast tropical sea. This sea was called the Tethys Ocean. It stretched from what is now North Africa all the way to Central Asia. It was warm, shallow, and filled with life. Coral reefs grew in its clear waters. Strange marine reptiles swam through its depths, and dotting its surface like emeralds scattered on blue silk were countless islands. Some were tiny, barely larger than a football field. Others were substantial, covering thousands of square kilometers. Mountains poked up from the water, their peaks covered in lush green forests. Volcanoes rumbled and occasionally erupted, adding new land to the archipelago. This was a world of islands. A world where the rules of evolution were about to get turned completely upside down. Because when animals get trapped on islands isolated from the mainland, something fascinating happens. They change. Think about it this way. Imagine you're a large dinosaur living on a huge continent. You have plenty of space to roam, plenty of food to eat, plenty of other dinosaurs to interact with. Your size is actually helpful because it keeps predators away and lets you reach food that smaller creatures can't access. But now imagine that same dinosaur somehow ends up on a small island. Maybe it swam there during a storm, maybe it floated there on a piece of driftwood. However it happened, now it's stuck. Suddenly, your size is a problem. The island doesn't have enough food to support a giant creature. Every day is a struggle to find enough to eat. Meanwhile, your smaller relatives, the ones who need less food, are doing just fine. Over time, over many generations, evolution begins to favor the smaller individuals. They survive better. They have more babies. And gradually, over thousands and thousands of years, the entire species shrinks. This process is called insular dwarfism, island dwarfing, and it happened again and again on the islands of the Tethys Sea. But here's where the story gets even stranger. While the big dinosaurs were shrinking, other creatures were growing. Creatures that could fly or swim or move quickly between islands. They found that the islands offered opportunities. With fewer competitors and plenty of food in certain niches, they could grow larger than their mainland cousins. This created an upside-down world, a world where the predators were bigger than the prey, where flying reptiles became more dangerous than dinosaurs, where every rule of nature seemed to bend. And right in the heart of this island chain, there was one island that took this to the extreme. That island was Hatseg. If you could have seen it from above, it would have looked beautiful, lush and green, with mountains rising from its center and rivers winding through its valleys. Mist would rise from its forests in the morning. Storms would roll in from the sea in the afternoon. it would have seemed like paradise. But paradise isn't always what it appears to be, because on Hatzeg Island, something strange was happening. Something that wouldn't be discovered until millions of years later, when humans started digging into the rocks of Romania and found fossils that didn't make any sense. Fossils of dinosaurs that were far too small, fossils of flying reptiles that were far too big. Fossils that told us stories so bizarre that scientists initially thought they had made a mistake. But they hadn't made a mistake. They had found Hatzeg. They had found the upside-down world. And now, as you drift deeper into sleep tonight, I want you to imagine that you're there, standing on that island, feeling the warm breeze on your face, hearing the calls of strange creatures echoing through the forest, because we're about to meet those creatures, we're about to walk among them, and I promise you, nothing in your imagination could prepare you for how strange they truly were. If you're enjoying this journey through time, do me a small favour. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss future stories like this. Because trust me, the history of our planet is filled with incredible tales, and Hatzeg is just the beginning. Now, let's step onto the island itself and see what evolution created there. Chapter 2: The Island That Evolution Forgot. Hatzeg Island sat in the middle of the Tethys Ocean like a jewel in a crown of water. It wasn't small. Scientists estimate that it covered somewhere between 80,000 and 200,000 square kilometres. To give you a sense of scale, that's about the size of modern-day Madagascar, one of the largest islands in the world today, but size isn't everything. What mattered more was that Hatzeg was isolated, completely cut off from the mainland, surrounded by deep water that no dinosaur could swim across and no land animal could cross. This isolation lasted for millions of years, and during that time the creatures on Hatzeg had to adapt to their new home or die. Let me paint you a picture of what this island was like. The northern part of Hatzeg was mountainous. Rocky peaks rose into the clouds, their slopes covered in tough, scrubby vegetation. Rivers began in these highlands, fed by rainfall and mountain springs, then cascaded down through deep valleys into the lowlands below. The southern part of the island was flatter and wetter. Dense forests covered the land, ferns grew as tall as houses, ancient palm trees spread their fronds wide to catch the sunlight. Cycads, those strange plants that look like a cross between a palm tree and a fern, dotted the landscape. The air was thick and humid, heavy with the smell of rotting plants and damp earth. Along the coasts, where the land met the sea, there were wetlands and mangrove swamps. The water here was brackish, a mix of salt and fresh, and it teemed with life. Fish swam in schools through the tangled roots of mangrove trees. Ancient crocodiles lurked in the shallows, their eyes just above the water, waiting. Insects buzzed in clouds so thick that they looked like smoke. The climate was hot and wet. Imagine the tropics, but even more extreme. The rainy season brought torrential downpours that could last for weeks. Rivers swelled and flooded their banks. The forest dripped constantly with water. Everything was green and alive and growing. But then the dry season would come. For months, almost no rain would fall. The rivers would shrink to thin streams. The wetlands would dry up into cracked mud flats. The plants would wilt and turn brown. And all the creatures on the island would have to survive on whatever food and water they could find. This cycle repeated year after year, decade after decade, for millions of years, and it shaped everything that lived on Hatzeg. Because here's the thing about islands, they're tough places to survive. There's only so much land, only so much food, only so much fresh water. When you can't leave, when you're trapped, you have to make do with what you have, and that's exactly what the creatures of Hatzeg did. The fossil record tells us that the island had a surprisingly rich ecosystem. There were herbivores, plant eaters that munched on ferns and leaves and sicked fronds. There were carnivores, meat eaters that hunted the herbivores. There were scavengers that cleaned up the leftovers. And there were omnivores, creatures that ate whatever they could find. But here's what made Hatzeg special. Almost everything on the island was the wrong size. The dinosaurs that should have been huge were tiny. The flying reptiles that should have been small were massive. It was as if someone had taken the normal rules of nature, shaken them up in a bag and dumped them out in a completely random order. Scientists call Hatzeg a natural laboratory. It's a place where we can see evolution in action, watch how life adapts to extreme conditions, and learn lessons that apply to the entire history of our planet. Because Hatzeg teaches us something fundamental, nature doesn't care about our expectations. It doesn't follow rules written in textbooks. It simply does whatever works, whatever allows life to survive and reproduce. And sometimes what works is completely unexpected. On Hatzeg, what worked was getting smaller if you were big and getting bigger if you were small. It was an upside-down world and it functioned perfectly for millions of years. In the shallow seas around the island, coral reefs grew in fantastic shapes and colours. Fish of every size and type filled these reefs. Some had armour-like scales. Others had long, sharp teeth. Still others had evolved to blend in perfectly with the coral, invisible until they struck. Marine reptiles patrolled the deeper waters. These weren't dinosaurs. They were distant relatives. Creatures that had gone back to the sea millions of years earlier. Some looked like dolphins with long jaws full of needle-sharp teeth. Others looked like giant sea turtles with flippers instead of legs. And above it all, flying through the air, were the pterosaurs. These weren't birds. They were reptiles with wings made of skin stretched between elongated finger bones. Some were small, no bigger than a sparrow. But others, the ones that would come to rule Hatzeg's skies, were absolutely gigantic. This was the world that awaited any creature unlucky enough to be stranded on Hatzeg. It was beautiful, it was deadly, and it was unlike anywhere else on Earth. As we move forward in this story, you'll meet the residents of this strange island one by one. You'll see how they lived, how they hunted, how they died. And you'll understand why paleontologists call Hatzeg one of the most important fossil sites ever discovered. Because frozen in the rocks of modern Romania, buried under millions of years of sediment, lies the evidence of this upside-down world. And that evidence tells a story so weird, so unexpected, that it challenges everything we thought we knew about how evolution works. But before we meet the creatures themselves, let me ask you something. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to shrink? To wake up one morning and find that you're half the size you used to be? That your whole world has suddenly become twice as big? That's essentially what happened to the dinosaurs of Hatzeg, and their story is where we'll begin. Chapter 3. The Incredible Shrinking Giants. Imagine you're a titanosaur. One of the biggest creatures to ever walk the earth. Your body is longer than a tennis court. You weigh as much as 10 elephants. When you walk, the ground shakes. When you call out, your voice rumbles like thunder. You're a giant, a true titan, and on the mainland, that makes you nearly invincible. No predator would dare attack you. You can reach the highest leaves on the tallest trees. You can push through the thickest forests. You're the king of your world. But then, somehow, you end up on an island. Maybe a herd of your kind got caught in a flood and swept out to sea. Maybe they clung to floating debris and eventually washed up on a beach. However it happened, now you're here on Hatzeg Island. And suddenly, being a giant isn't so great anymore. Because there's not enough food. The island can't support a creature your size. You spend every waking moment eating, and it's still not enough. You're constantly hungry, constantly searching, constantly struggling. Meanwhile, your smaller cousins, The ones who only weigh a few tons instead of 30 are doing fine. They don't need as much food. They can hide in the forests more easily. They reproduce faster because they don't have to spend years growing to full size. Over time, over many generations, evolution begins to work its magic. The smaller individuals survive better. They have more offspring. And gradually, over thousands and thousands of years, the entire species shrinks. This isn't fantasy, this actually happened on Hatzeg Island. And we know because of a dinosaur called Magyarosaurus. Magyarosaurus was a titanosaur, a member of the same family that includes some of the largest dinosaurs ever discovered. On the mainland, its relatives could grow up to 25 meters long and weigh 30 tons. But on Hatzeg, Magyarosaurus reached only about 6 meters long. It weighed less than a ton. It was small enough that an adult human could look it in the eye. When scientists first discovered Magyarosaurus fossils, they assumed they had found babies, juvenile dinosaurs that hadn't finished growing yet. But when they examined the bones closely, they found something surprising. The bones showed growth rings, like the rings inside a tree trunk. And those growth rings told a clear story. These weren't babies. These were fully grown adults. Their bones had stopped growing. They had reached their maximum size. In other words, Magyarosaurus wasn't a baby giant. It was a miniature giant. Evolution had shrunk it down to island size, and Magyarosaurus wasn't alone. Hatzeg Island was home to several species of dwarf dinosaurs. There was Telmatosaurus, a duck-billed dinosaur. On the mainland, its cousins grew to 12 meters long. On Hatzeg, Telmatosaurus reached only 5 meters, small enough that a large predator could easily take one down. There was Zalmoxes, an iguana-like plant-eater. It stood only about as tall as an adult human and weighed around 150 kilograms, about as much as a large wild boar. These weren't the mighty dinosaurs of Jurassic Park. These were miniature versions, scaled down to fit their island home. But here's what's truly fascinating. Their brains didn't shrink as much as their bodies did. When you do the math, you find that these dwarf dinosaurs had relatively larger brains compared to their body size than their giant mainland cousins. In other words, as they got smaller, they might have gotten smarter, or at least their brains stayed sharp even as their bodies shrank. This makes sense when you think about it. Life on an island's complicated. Resources are limited. You have to be clever to survive. You can't just overpower your problems with size and strength. You have to outsmart them, so the dinosaurs of Hatzeg became a different kind of survivor. Quick, alert, efficient. They lived in small herds, usually just 4 to 6 individuals. Any more than that and they would eat all the available food too quickly. They moved through the forest quietly, always listening for danger. Because even though they were dinosaurs, even though their ancestors had ruled the world, on Hatzeg they were no longer at the top of the food chain. They were prey. Picture this scene. It's early morning on Hatzeg. Mist rises from the forest floor. A small herd of Magyarosaurus moves slowly through the ferns, their long necks stretching up to nibble on cicad fronds. They're calm, peaceful, munching away, but they're also nervous. Every few seconds, one of them lifts its head and looks around. Its eyes scan the sky. Because the danger on Hatzeg doesn't come from the ground, it comes from above, and that's where our story takes its strangest turn. Because while the dinosaurs were shrinking, something else on Hatzeg was growing to monstrous proportions, growing so large that it could snatch a full-grown dinosaur right off the ground and carry it away. Before we meet that creature though, let me introduce you to something else. Something that walked on 2 legs, had sharp claws, and was one of the most controversial dinosaurs ever discovered. If you're finding this story as fascinating as I do, please take a second to hit that like button. It helps others discover these incredible tales from Earth's past. And believe me, what's coming next is even more amazing. Now, let's talk about the predators of Hatzeg, the hunters that stalked through those ancient forests. And let me tell you, they were nothing like what you'd expect. Chapter 4: The Stocky Dragon of Transylvania. When most people think of dinosaur predators, they imagine massive creatures like Tyrannosaurus rex. Huge jaws, enormous teeth, bodies the size of a truck, monsters that could swallow a human in a single bite. But on Hatzeg Island, the predators were different. They had to be, because in a world where prey was scarce and food was limited, being a giant meat-eater just didn't work. The top predator on Hatzeg was a creature called Balor Bondok, and if you saw one you'd probably laugh at first, because it was tiny, only about 2 meters long. It weighed maybe 30 kilograms, about as much as a large dog. But here's the thing, Balor wasn't built for size, it was built for pure, brutal efficiency. And once you understood what it could do, you wouldn't be laughing anymore. The name Balor Bondok comes from Romanian. It means stocky dragon. And that's exactly what it was. A compact, muscular killing machine unlike any other dinosaur ever discovered. Let me describe it to you. Imagine a raptor, one of those intelligent, fast-moving predators you've seen in movies. Now imagine someone took that raptor and compressed it, making every bone thicker, every muscle more powerful, every weapon more deadly. Balor had a massive chest filled with powerful muscles. Its hind legs were short but incredibly strong, built for sudden bursts of explosive power. It couldn't chase prey over long distances, but it didn't need to, because Balor was an ambush predator. And here's what made it truly special: its feet. Most raptors have one large curved claw on each foot, that famous killing claw that they use to slash at prey. But Balor had two massive sickle-shaped claws on each foot, 4 killing weapons in total. Imagine how that worked. Balor would hide in the dense undergrowth of the forest, completely still, watching and waiting. Its eyes would lock onto a young Telmatosaurus grazing nearby, unaware of the danger. Then in a flash, Balor would explode from cover. Its powerful legs would launch it forward like a spring releasing. It would leap onto the back of its prey, and those 4 terrible claws would dig in deep, locking onto the victim like hooks. The Telmatosaurus would try to run, try to shake the attacker off, but it was too late. Balor's claws were buried in its flesh, and then those powerful jaws would snap forward, biting into the neck, finding the vital arteries, ending the struggle in seconds. This is how Balor hunted. Fast, brutal, efficient. It didn't waste energy on long chases or dramatic battles. It simply killed and ate, conserving every bit of energy for survival. But here's where Balor becomes controversial. Here's where scientists start to argue. Because when paleontologists examined Balor's teeth closely, they noticed something strange. The teeth weren't as sharp or serrated as typical carnivore teeth. They were a bit flatter, a bit more rounded. And Balor's arms, those short, powerful forelimbs, they seemed built for grasping and pulling, not just slashing. Its neck was shorter and stockier than other raptors. Its overall build suggested something different. Some scientists looked at this evidence and proposed a wild idea. What if Balor wasn't purely a carnivore? What if it was an omnivore, eating both meat and plants? Think about it. On an island where food is scarce, being able to eat multiple types of food is a huge advantage. When there's no prey available, you can eat fruits or roots or tough vegetation. When meat is available, you can hunt. You're flexible. You can survive anything. Could Balor have used those powerful arms to break open tough fruits or dig up roots? Could those less sharp teeth have been designed for grinding plant matter as well as tearing flesh? We don't know for sure. There's no fossil evidence that proves it one way or the other, but it's a fascinating possibility. It would mean that Balor represents something truly unique in dinosaur evolution. A predator that learned to eat like a scavenger, an omnivore, whatever it took to survive. What we do know is that Balor was one of the most successful creatures on Hatseg. Its fossils are among the most common found in the area, suggesting that it was plentiful and well adapted to island life. And it wasn't alone. Hatseg was home to other small predators as well. Creatures like Bradycnemae and Elopteryx, tiny dinosaurs less than 2 meters long that probably hunted insects, small reptiles and eggs. They filled the role that birds do in modern forests, cleaning up the little things, keeping the ecosystem balanced. But all of these ground-based predators, even the mighty Balor, lived in constant awareness of a greater danger. Something that none of them could fight. Something that ruled Hatseg not through strength or cunning, but through sheer size and power. Because remember, while the dinosaurs on Hatseg were shrinking, something else was growing. Growing to proportions that shouldn't have been possible. Growing into a monster that haunted the nightmares of every creature on the island. It's time to look up. Time to turn our eyes to the sky. Time to meet the true king of Hatseg Island. And I promise you, what you're about to hear will change the way you think about prehistoric life forever. Because this creature wasn't just big, it was impossible, and yet it existed. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this journey, drop a comment below. Tell me, would you rather face a pack of Balor on the ground or one of the flying monsters we're about to meet in the sky? I'm genuinely curious what you think. Now, let's meet the nightmare that flew above Hatseg Island. Let's meet Hatzegopteryx, Chapter 5, Wings of Terror. There's a moment in many people's nightmares where they look up and see something that shouldn't exist. Something huge and dark blotting out the sky. Something with wings. For the creatures of Hatseg Island, that nightmare was real, and its name was Hatzegopteryx. Hatzegopteryx thambema, the winged demon of Hatseg. If you saw one, you would understand immediately why it earned that name. Imagine standing in a forest clearing. You're looking at the trees, the ferns, the small dinosaurs grazing peacefully. Everything seems quiet and normal. Then a shadow passes over you. Not a small shadow like a cloud or a bird. A shadow so large that it plunges the entire clearing into darkness. You look up and your heart stops, because hanging in the air above you, circling slowly on wings that stretch 12 meters from tip to tip, is something that looks like it came from hell itself. Its head is enormous, 3 meters long, bigger than your entire body. Its neck is thick and muscular, covered in scales or possibly primitive feathers. We're not entirely sure. Its body is compact but powerful, and those wings, those massive, leathery wings, beat slowly and deliberately, creating wind strong enough to bend the trees below. This is Hatzegopteryx, and it is the largest, most powerful predator that ever flew over Europe. Let me give you some context for just how massive this creature was. Hatzegopteryx belonged to a family of pterosaurs called Azhdarchids. These were the giants of the pterosaur world, the largest flying animals that ever existed. Their most famous member was Quetzalcoatlus from North America, a creature with a wingspan of over 10 meters. But Hatzegopteryx was different. It was built heavier, stronger, more powerful than any other Azhdarchid. While most pterosaurs had thin, hollow bones to keep them light enough to fly, Hatzegopteryx had thick bones reinforced with internal structures like the inside of a honeycomb. Strong but still light enough for flight. This unusual bone structure meant Hatzegopteryx could do something other pterosaurs couldn't. It could use its head as a weapon. It could swing that massive skull like a club, smashing into prey with enough force to break bones. It could bite down with tremendous pressure, crushing through flesh and sinew. When it stood on the ground, Hatzegopteryx was tall, taller than a giraffe, about 4.5 to 5 meters high. It walked on all fours, using its folded wings like front legs, moving with a strange, loping gait that must have been both comical and terrifying to watch. But don't let the awkward walking fool you. On the ground, Hatzegopteryx was a hunter, an active, aggressive predator that stalked the forests and beaches of Hatzeg, looking for prey. Picture this. A young Magyarosaurus has wandered away from its herd. It's grazing near the edge of the forest, unaware that something is watching it from the tree line. Hatzegopteryx stands motionless in the shadows. Its head is lowered. Its eyes are locked onto the target. It's not flying right now. It's hunting on foot, using the element of surprise. Then it moves. Those powerful legs push forward, carrying the massive creature out of the forest at surprising speed. The little dinosaur has only a split second to react. It tries to run. Too late. Those enormous jaws snap shut around its body. There's a brief struggle, a few seconds of thrashing, then silence. Hatzegopteryx lifts its head, the dead dinosaur hanging from its beak. With a few powerful flaps of its wings, it launches itself into the air, carrying its meal to a rocky outcrop where it can eat in peace. This was life on Hatzeg. The herbivores lived in constant fear, always watching the sky, always listening for the sound of those massive wings beating overhead. And here's what makes Hatzegopteryx even more terrifying. It probably wasn't alone. Fossil evidence suggests there were multiple individuals living on the island, possibly even hunting in pairs or small groups. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine looking up and seeing not one but 2 or 3 of these massive creatures circling above you, knowing that at any moment they could drop from the sky and end your life? Some scientists believe that Hatzegopteryx was the apex predator of the entire island, not just a scavenger or a fish eater like most pterosaurs, but an active hunter that preyed on dinosaurs, crocodiles, and even other pterosaurs. The evidence supports this theory. The wear patterns on Hatzegopteryx's teeth show that it bit into hard objects, possibly bones. Its jaw structure suggests it could deliver a bite force comparable to modern crocodiles, and its size alone meant that nothing on Hatzeg could fight back effectively. Of course, Hatzegopteryx wasn't the only flying creature on the island. There were smaller pterosaurs too, like Urajdarko with its long, needle-like beak perfect for spearing fish. These smaller flyers probably stayed near the coasts, hunting in the shallow lagoons and mangrove swamps, careful to avoid Hatzegopteryx territory. The skies of Hatzeg were a battlefield, a 3-dimensional hunting ground where predators ruled from above and prey had nowhere to hide. But as terrifying as Hatzegopteryx was, it faced the same challenge as every other creature on the island: survival in a closed system. There was only so much food, only so much space, only so much energy to go around. And that brings us to perhaps the most important question about Hatzeg Island. How did this bizarre ecosystem actually function? How did all these strange creatures live together without destroying each other? The answer is both beautiful and brutal, and it shows us something profound about how nature works. If you're still with me on this journey, thank you. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, because we've got more incredible stories from Earth's history coming your way. And if you have friends who love dinosaurs or prehistoric life, share this video with them. Trust me, they'll thank you. Now, let's step into the daily life of Hatzeg Island and see how this upside-down world actually worked. Chapter 6. Life on the edge. Life on Hatzeg Island was a delicate balance. Like a circus performer walking on a tightrope, every creature lived on the edge between survival and extinction. Let me take you through a typical day on the island, and you'll see what I mean. The sun rises over the Tethys Ocean, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Mist hangs over the forests of Hatzeg, giving everything a dreamlike quality. The air is already warm, humid, heavy with moisture. Near a river in the lowlands, a small herd of Magyarosaurus begins to stir. They've spent the night clustered together for safety, their long necks lowered as they slept. Now, as the light grows stronger, they separate and begin to feed on the ferns and low-hanging cycad fronds. They eat constantly, because even though they're small compared to mainland titanosaurs, they still need a lot of food. Their digestive systems are designed to process huge quantities of plant matter, extracting every bit of nutrition. But they're nervous. Every few minutes, one of them stops eating and looks around, scans the tree line, glances at the sky, because danger is everywhere on Hatzeg. In the forest nearby, Balor waits. It's been hours since its last meal, and it's hungry, but it's patient. Hunting requires timing, and Balor has learned to wait for the perfect moment. Meanwhile, above the forest canopy, Hatzegopteryx circles lazily on the morning thermals. The warm air rising from the sun-heated land keeps it aloft without effort. Its keen eyes scan the ground below, searching for any sign of movement. This is the rhythm of Hatzeg. Prey trying to feed and stay alive. Predators trying to hunt and eat. Every creature locked in an ancient dance of survival. In the rivers and wetlands, ancient crocodiles called a Lodiposuchus lurk in the murky water. They're about 3 meters long, smaller than modern crocodiles, but perfectly adapted to island life. They wait with infinite patience for something to come close enough to strike. A young Telmatosaurus approaches the water's edge to drink. It's cautious, nervous, but it has no choice. It needs water. For a moment, nothing happens. The surface of the river is still and calm. Then, in an explosion of spray and violence, the crocodile strikes. Its jaws snap shut around the dinosaur's leg. The Telmatosaurus screams and tries to pull away, but the crocodile's grip is unbreakable. Within seconds, the struggle is over. This is the harsh reality of Hatzeg. Death comes quickly here. There are no second chances. But here's the fascinating part. Despite all this violence, the ecosystem remains balanced. How? The answer lies in the way energy flows through the island. Let me explain. At the bottom of the food chain are the plants. Ferns, cycads, conifers, palms. They capture energy from the sun and turn it into leaves, fruits, and seeds. The herbivores eat those plants. Magyarosaurus, Telmatosaurus, Zalmoxes. They convert plant matter into meat. The predators eat the herbivores Balor, Hatzegopteryx, Allodaposuchus. They convert meat into more meat. And when predators die, scavengers and decomposers break down their bodies, returning nutrients to the soil so plants can grow again. It's a circle, a loop. And on Hatzeg, this loop was perfectly calibrated. Not because nature planned it that way, but because any creature that disrupted the balance would eventually go extinct. Think about it. If there were too many Magyarosaurus, they would eat all the plants and then starve. If there were too many Balor, they would eat all the Magyarosaurus and then starve. The system self-regulates through extinction. This is why populations on Hatzeg were small. A typical dinosaur herd had only 4 to 6 individuals. A solitary predator like Balor probably lived alone or in pairs. And even the mighty Hatzegopteryx likely had only a small population, perhaps just a few dozen individuals across the entire island, but small populations are vulnerable. One bad year, One drought, one epidemic, and a species could be wiped out completely. This is the knife edge that Hatzeg's creatures lived on. They survived for millions of years, perfectly adapted to their strange little world, but they were always just one disaster away from extinction. The sediments in modern Romania tell us that Hatzeg experienced periodic catastrophes, flash floods that swept away entire forests, wildfires that burned for weeks, volcanic eruptions that covered the land in ash. Each time the ecosystem would collapse, populations would crash. Many species would die out completely, but somehow life always recovered. The survivors would reproduce. New species would evolve to fill empty niches, and within a few 100,000 years, Hatzeg would be thriving again. This cycle of destruction and recovery happened again and again over millions of years. It shaped the creatures of Hatzeg, making them tough, adaptable, resilient. They had to be, because on an island, there's nowhere to run when disaster strikes. You adapt or you die. As the day progresses on our imaginary visit to Hatzeg, the temperature rises. By midday it's oppressively hot. The dinosaurs retreat into the shade, panting, trying to stay cool. The predators do the same, conserving energy during the hottest hours. But in the late afternoon, as shadows grow longer, activity picks up again. This is prime hunting time. The light is tricky, full of shadows and confusion, perfect for ambush predators. And as the sun sets and darkness falls, a whole new set of creatures emerges. Nocturnal hunters, small mammals no bigger than rats, scurry through the undergrowth looking for insects and eggs. Primitive birds, ancestors of modern species, call from the trees. The night on Hatzeg is filled with sounds, clicking insects, croaking frogs, the distant roar of a dinosaur calling to its herd. And sometimes, if you listen carefully, the heavy flap of massive wings as Hatzegopteryx hunts under cover of darkness. This was life on the island, beautiful, brutal, balanced, a closed world that worked perfectly for millions of years. But no world lasts forever, and Hatzeg's time was running out, because far away, on the other side of the planet, something was about to happen. Something that would end not just Hatzeg, but the entire age of dinosaurs. Stay with me now, because we're approaching the most dramatic moment in this story, the moment when everything changed. Chapter 7. The Day the Sky Fell. 66 million years ago, and what seemed like an ordinary day, the world ended, not slowly, not gradually, but in an instant. Let me tell you what happened. Let me describe the day that the dinosaurs died. It starts with light, a brilliant streak across the sky, brighter than 1,000 suns. If you were standing on Hatzeg Island and looked up, you would see something impossible, a star falling to Earth. Except it wasn't a star, it was a rock. An asteroid more than 10 kilometers wide, traveling at 20 kilometers per second. 20 times faster than a bullet. It had been travelling through space for billions of years, wandering alone through the darkness, and then, by pure bad luck, its path crossed Earth's orbit at exactly the wrong moment. The asteroid entered Earth's atmosphere somewhere over what is now Central America. The friction of air molecules rubbing against its surface heated it to incredible temperatures. The air around it caught fire, the sky lit up like daytime even though it might have been night. And then it hit. It struck in the shallow sea off the coast of what is now Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. The location is now called Chicxulub Crater, and the impact was beyond anything humans can truly comprehend. Imagine the force of every nuclear weapon ever built, all detonating at once. Now multiply that by 1,000. That's how much energy was released when the Chicxulub asteroid hit Earth. The impact vaporized the asteroid itself. It vaporized thousands of cubic kilometers of seawater. It punched a hole in Earth's crust and sent molten rocks spraying into space. The shockwave from the impact traveled around the entire planet in minutes. Windows would have shattered if windows had existed. Trees were flattened in every direction for hundreds of kilometers, but that was just the beginning. The debris from the impact, billions of tons of vaporized rock and water, shot up into the atmosphere. Some of it reached space, some of it rained back down immediately, but it had been superheated to thousands of degrees. When it fell, it was like tiny pieces of the sun falling from the sky. Forests everywhere on Earth burst into flame. Wildfires spread across continents. The air itself became hot enough to burn your lungs if you breathed it. On Hatzig Island, thousands of kilometers away from the impact site, the effects arrived within hours. First came the earthquakes, not one earthquake, but a rolling series of tremors that lasted for days. The ground heaved and buckled, rivers changed course, trees toppled, then came the tsunamis. The impact had displaced an unimaginable amount of water, and that water had to go somewhere. Waves hundreds of meters high raced across the Tethys Ocean, travelling at the speed of jet airplanes. When they reached Hatzeg, they swept over the coastal lowlands like the hand of an angry god. Everything, the forests, the beaches, the wetlands, was scoured clean. Dinosaurs, pterosaurs, crocodiles, all were swept away and buried under meters of mud and debris. But even this wasn't the worst part, because what came next lasted not hours, not days, but years. The dust, the ash, the smoke from a million fires, all mixing together in the atmosphere, blocking out the sun, turning day into twilight. On Hatzig, as around the world, the temperature plummeted. Within weeks, it dropped from tropical warmth to near freezing. The plants, used to constant heat and sunlight, began to die. And when the plants died, everything else followed. The herbivores starved, the carnivores starved. The scavengers found plenty to eat at first, but eventually they starved too. Imagine being a Magyarosaurus during this time. You've survived the impact, the fires, the tsunamis. You're still alive, but there's nothing to eat. The ferns are brown and dead. The cycads have withered away. Every day you walk, searching desperately for food, growing weaker and weaker. Eventually, you can't walk anymore. You lie down in what used to be a beautiful forest and is now a wasteland of ash and dead trees, and you close your eyes for the last time. This happened to millions of creatures, billions. Across the entire planet, 75% of all species went extinct within months of the impact. The dinosaurs, which had ruled Earth for over 160 million years, disappeared almost completely. Only the birds, which are technically dinosaurs, survived. The pterosaurs, including the mighty Hatzegopteryx, vanished forever. The marine reptiles died out. Even many types of fish and insects went extinct. It was the end of an era, the end of the Cretaceous period, the end of the age of reptiles. On Hatzeg Island, nothing survived. The ecosystem that had existed in delicate balance for millions of years was destroyed in less than a year. The forests burned, the rivers dried up, the mountains crumbled, and eventually the island itself sank beneath the waves as tectonic forces reshaped the world. For millions of years afterward, Hatzeg was silent, empty, a tomb of rock and ash where nothing moved and nothing grew. But here's the remarkable thing about our planet. Life always finds a way. After the dust settled, after the skies cleared and the sun shone again, new forms of life began to spread across the scarred landscape. Small mammals that had hidden underground during the catastrophe emerged and found a world without dinosaurs. A world where they could grow, evolve, and eventually dominate. and deep in the ground, buried under layers of sediment, the remains of Hatzeg's creatures slowly turned to stone, preserved, waiting for a species that didn't exist yet, a species that wouldn't arise for another 66 million years, a species that would dig into the earth, find those fossils, and piece together the story of the upside-down world. That species was us, humans, and the story we discovered is the one I've been telling you tonight, which brings us to the final chapter of our journey, the part where we return to the present day and learn what Hatzeg Island means for us. Chapter 8: Voices from the Stones. The mountains of Romania are old and worn, gentle slopes covered in forests of oak and pine, peaceful valleys where shepherds tend their flocks, small villages with old stone churches. It doesn't look like the kind of place where you'd discover something extraordinary, but appearances can be deceiving. Because buried beneath these quiet mountains lies one of the most important fossil sites in the world, the Hatzeg Basin, the grave of the upside-down world. Paleontologists first began exploring this region in the late 1800s. They were looking for coal and minerals, but what they found instead was far more valuable: fossils, bones and teeth and fragments of creatures that had been extinct for 66 million years. At first, nobody understood what these fossils meant. They were too small, too strange. They didn't match any dinosaurs known from other parts of the world. Some scientists thought they must be juveniles, young animals that hadn't finished growing. Others thought they were deformed or diseased. A few even suggested the fossils were fake, carved by pranksters trying to fool researchers. But as more and more fossils were discovered, as new techniques like CT scanning and microscopic analysis were developed, the truth became clear. These weren't juveniles. These weren't mistakes. These were adults, fully grown, perfectly healthy adults that just happened to be tiny. And that's when scientists realized they had discovered something extraordinary. Proof of island dwarfism, evidence of evolution in action, a window into how life adapts to extreme conditions. Today, the Hatzeg Basin is recognized as a UNESCO Global Geopark. Researchers from around the world come here to study the rocks and fossils. Every year, new discoveries are made. New species are identified. New details emerge about how this strange ecosystem functioned. Let me tell you about some of the most exciting recent discoveries. In 2009, paleontologists announced the discovery of Balor Bondok. This strange, stocky predator with its double claws immediately became one of the most debated dinosaurs in the world. Papers were written, conferences were held, arguments raged about whether it was purely carnivorous or possibly omnivorous. In 2015, researchers published a detailed study of Hatzegopteryx, including new fossil material that helped them understand just how massive and powerful this creature was. They realized it wasn't just a giant pterosaur, it was a ground-hunting apex predator. This changed our entire understanding of how pterosaurs could live. And the discoveries continue. As recently as 2023, new fossils were found in the Hatzeg Basin. Small fragments of bone and teeth that hint at species we haven't identified yet. Mysteries still waiting to be solved. But here's what makes Hatzeg truly important. It teaches us lessons that go far beyond paleontology. Because Hatzeg shows us that evolution doesn't have a direction. It doesn't progress toward bigger, stronger, more complex. It simply responds to circumstances. Whatever works, survives. Whatever doesn't, dies out. On Hatzeg, what worked was being small if you were a herbivore and being huge if you were a predator that could fly. Upside down from what we'd expect, but perfectly logical once you understand the island's constraints. This has implications for understanding evolution everywhere. On islands around the world today we see similar patterns. Dwarf elephants, dwarf hippos, dwarf deer, Giant insects, giant birds, giant reptiles. The same rules that shaped Hatzeg are still shaping life today, and there's another lesson here, one that's perhaps even more important. Hatzeg reminds us that no matter how well adapted you are, no matter how perfectly you fit your environment, you can still be destroyed by forces beyond your control. The dinosaurs of Hatzeg did everything right. They evolved to fit their island perfectly. They survived for millions of years, and then, in a single day, they were gone. Not because they were weak or poorly adapted, but because an asteroid happened to hit on the other side of the planet. It's a humbling thought. We humans like to think we're in control, that we're masters of our world, but we're not. We're just one more species, living on a planet that has seen countless other species come and go. The difference is, we know this. We can look at fossils and learn from the past. We can see what happened to the dinosaurs and understand that it could happen to us. And that knowledge gives us power. The power to protect our world, the power to prepare for disasters, the power to ensure that humanity doesn't end up as fossils for some future species to study. As I bring this story to a close, I want you to think about something. Those creatures on Hatzeg Island, they lived and died without ever knowing they were part of something larger. They didn't know about evolution or extinction, or the vast sweep of Earth's history, but we do know. We have that gift, and with it comes responsibility. If you've made it this far in our journey, thank you. You've travelled back 70 million years, walked among dwarf dinosaurs and giant pterosaurs, witnessed the end of an era, and returned safely to the present. If you found this story meaningful, please share it with others. Leave a comment telling me what surprised you most. Subscribe so you can join me on future adventures through Earth's incredible history, because there are so many more stories to tell, so many more mysteries buried in rock and waiting to be discovered. Hatzeg Island is gone, but its memory lives on in stone and in the minds of everyone who hears its tale. Closing, the island's final gift. As you drift off to sleep tonight, I want to leave you with one final thought. Somewhere in the mountains of Romania, right now, there are fossils still buried. Bones that no human has ever seen. Creatures that no one has named yet. Stories that are waiting to be told. The rocks are patient. They've waited 66 million years already. They can wait a little longer. But when they're finally discovered, when some future paleontologist carefully brushes away the sediment and sees a bone that no one has seen before, they'll be connecting with the past in the most profound way possible. They'll be bringing Hatzeg Island back to life. And in that moment, that tiny fragment of the upside-down world will live again. Not physically, but in our imaginations, in our understanding, in our sense of wonder at how strange and beautiful and unexpected life can be. Hatzeg teaches us that nature is endlessly creative, that evolution never stops experimenting, that life finds ways to survive in the most unlikely places. It teaches us that size doesn't determine success, that the mighty can fall and the small can rise, that the rules we think are fixed can be bent and broken and rewritten. Most of all, it teaches us humility, because we're not the first intelligent species to walk this planet. We're not the first to adapt to our environment. We're not the first to think we understand how the world works, and we won't be the last. Millions of years from now, when humanity is gone, when our cities have crumbled to dust, maybe some new species will dig into the rocks and find our bones. Maybe they'll try to piece together our story, the way we've pieced together the story of Hatzeg. And maybe they'll wonder about us, wonder how we lived, wonder what our world was like, wonder what strange adaptations allowed us to survive for as long as we did. That's the gift that Hatzeg gives us. Not just knowledge about the past, but perspective on the present. A reminder that we're part of something vast and ancient. that we're connected to every creature that ever lived. The dwarf dinosaurs of Hatzeg, the stocky dragons, the winged monsters, they're our cousins, distant but real. We share DNA with them, we share a planet with them, though millions of years apart. And their story is our story too. A story about survival against impossible odds, about adaptation and change, about life's endless ability to surprise us. So sleep well tonight. Dream of islands in ancient seas. Dream of forests filled with strange creatures. Dream of a time when the world was young and wild and everything was still being written. And tomorrow when you wake, remember that you're part of this story too. You're a character in Earth's grand narrative, just like the dinosaurs of Hatzeg were. Make your chapter a good one. Good night. Sleep peacefully. And thank you for joining me on this journey through time. The upside down world may be gone, but it will never be forgotten. Not as long as there are people who wonder, people who dream, people who look at a fossil and see not just a bone but a window into another world. That world was Hatzeg Island, and now its story lives in you.